March Madness is around the corner. Have you filled out your bracket yet? Welcome back to another episode of the HeyUSA podcast. My name is Nick Garcia, senior reporter at PlayUSA, and with me, as always, Mr. Brant James, lead writer at PlayUSA. Brant, how are we doing today?
Doing great, feeling good, getting ready for the tournament. There's actually less pressure than this year because my alma mater is no way going to make it, so I can just root for chaos, and it's kind of liberating, honestly.
That feels good whenever you can just root for breaking people's brackets, which is, I think it's bracket busters.
Break them.
Yeah. Obviously, as people know, my alma mater is Texas Tech, which will be a top seed in the tournament, but my allegiance is to the feisty. I mean, they used to be a mid-major. They used to be the Cinderella story, but now they're just the top contender, the Gonzaga Bulldogs. I've had allegiance to them for the past 35 years, and I'm hoping that they can finally bring back a championship to Spokane. So we'll see.
I hope things go well for you, but I'm going to be rooting for the underdog. No offense. I'm sorry. Chaos. Rooting for chaos.
Yeah. So one of the things we'll talk about today on the pod is I guess we could just dive back into it. Remote registration has returned to Illinois, which is a huge thing. No longer do you have to take the 4-hour trip each way to East St. Louis and sign up with the FanDuel Sportsbook. You can now be in the comfort of your home or anywhere you got a Wi-Fi symbol and sign up for any of the seven. We just got our 7th sports books in the state. 7th is BetMGM. We wrote a little thing about that. We'll link in the description, but BetMGM is the new sports book in town. But other than that, people finally can bet on University of Illinois and Loyola Chicago, which punched their ticket to the tournament. So March Madness is always exciting times.
Yeah, that would have been a big deal last year if folks could have bet on those. Obviously, they played each other. And it's funny, I'm just reminded when you talk about remote registration and the drive to East St. Louis, a lot of folks have the misconception that Illinois is Chicago from top to bottom, and really a lot of Illinois is Kentucky once you get outside the suburbs.
Basically, which the Wildcats are doing pretty good this year, so we'll see if they can do a little something. Other than NCAA, we'll be putting out some content on that. Nothing too crazy, Super Bowl wise. What do you got? What are you eyeing? The next coming weeks.
Well, this past week has been a really interesting week on the confluence. Love that word of modern sports, media, marketing, business, revenue streams, integrity, and sports betting. Last week, we got news, pretty landmark news, that Conor McDavid, center for the Edmonton Oilers, became the first ever active professional athlete in North America to sign a sports betting ambassadorship. He did that with BetMGM. Click below, you can see our power poll. He rocketed up that on the most prominent and important such jobs. It also had a little cringeworthiness to it because it just seems like, is that a line that really needs to be crossed? The NHL obviously needs to raise its profile as much as possible among the big four. It's four. Conor McDavid is the reigning MVP, a young man, a high-profile guy. The company is not going to take down any of the props on him, anything on the Oilers. It's going to be business as usual. But he's going to tell you to come on board and bet. And I'm an active guy. Normally, it's the retired athletes who are soaking up all the money in that. And crack reporter Play NY, our friend of the show, Mike Mazzio, got a quote from NHL Deputy Commissioner Bill Daley, who said, "We've negotiated extensively with the NHLPA over how and on what terms we can and will permit these types of relationships. We're very comfortable, and we ultimately were able to strike the right balance, and that we incorporated appropriate and sufficient safeguards to ensure the integrity of our competition." If you say so, it still makes me cringe.
That's a mouthful. But per your research you've done, there is no rule in the NHL collective bargaining agreement that says an active athlete cannot do what he did, would become an ambassador. Like,
absolutely.
So long as he
I guess these negotiations, happen in back rooms in Toronto
Yeah.
somewhere, because I can't find it written down. The NHL is actually working under a collective bargaining agreement with a few tweaks that's almost 10 years old. 2013 document. They've kicked the can down the pond twice to avoid lockouts and strikes. The only thing that I could find is NHL players are forbidden from jumping into tobacco or alcohol sponsorships. Sports betting is okay. It's not written in there. Obviously, this document 2013 is well pre the fall of PASPA. NHL acknowledges sports betting and gambling as revenue streams. A lot of teams have deals with casinos and sports books, and the Washington Capitals next year are going to put a Caesars logo on their uniform. So this is happening, but it just feels like a red line has been crossed with an active player signing a deal like this.
And it's basically from, again, what we've found is ambassadorship, yes. Betting on NHL games, frowned upon. Can't do that part.
Exactly. Yeah. It does say that very high in the CBA. Do not do this. This is bad. And just like segue, it says this in the NFL's CBA with players. And Calvin Ridley apparently didn't read the fine print when he was away from the Falcons in November, because he got busted for betting on NFL games.
Yeah. So if listeners and viewers out there, if you haven't heard this, star wide receiver for the Atlanta Falcons, Calvin Ridley, was caught. Found that he was betting on NFL games while he was absent from the team. He didn't play much last year. He was away for personal reasons, but apparently during that time or some point last year, he was found to have wagered, I think what they said, $1,500 on. He claims
$1,500 on Twitter. He's taking a real bad tack on defending himself on Twitter, and he probably should stop.
So what we found in that contract is it specifically says that you cannot bet. If you're an NFL player, you cannot bet on NFL games. However, it doesn't say that you can't bet on something like NBA basketball or Premier League soccer. So
yeah.
In hindsight, he just picked the wrong sport to bet on. Basically,
he could have done something else. Right there in player contract section 15, there's a lot of word slaw in there. Don't fix games, don't associate with gamblers, don't take bribes, don't give away info, don't bet on NFL games. And he was actually busted in the age of tech. If he'd sidled up to a retail sports book, I don't know, Calvin Ridley, maybe he would have gotten away with it. Maybe he's low profile enough to do it. But he bet on his Hard Rock app. Apparently, this is reported through a lot of sources, that he was in Florida at the time, and he bet legally, which means that he had to have been using the Hard Rock app, which was up for about a month in November. And Genius Sports, the company that tracks data and maintains integrity for that app, flagged it and informed the NFL, and he was investigated, and they did not take kindly to that.
Yeah, I mean, it plays into this notion that we've reported on several times of this, integrity monitoring that the NFL is trying to do, integrity fees, things like that. But it also shows a bit on, they say the education is needed for these things, but it's fairly simple. Whatever sport you put on your W-2, professional athlete for NBA, soccer, baseball, whatever, don't wager on that sport. It's that simple. I mean, if you're
absolutely,
and as I mentioned earlier, for you two sport athletes out there, it goes double. If you're Russell Wilson's, Kyler Murray's, you can't bet on baseball, you can't bet on football. But if you want to throw a little money on, LeBron James and them winning the Western Conference Finals, go ahead and do that. Infinite amount of sports you can bet on.
Yeah. It brings up an interesting point, though. Players aren't supposed to, use insider information or share it. Certainly, Calvin Ridley, as a sports bettor, has way better knowledge about what might happen in the NFL as far as, does this guy play hurt? Text message, is this guy not feeling well? Is he pissed about his contract and he's going to go 60%? It's hard for him not to know. I'm not saying accusing him of anything. It's really hard not to know what's going around at the office, around the water cooler. But it also brings up the point of the greater connection between sports betting entities and the leagues. There was a great article in the New Yorker about Warren Sharp, who's a tout and a quant and analytics guy who is very well known to have collaborated with some NFL front offices. He was brought in. The Eagles and the Browns have a connection. There's some of the more data-driven teams.
Yeah.
And there was an anecdote in there. It didn't name the team, that he was sharing information with a coach and it helped identify a play that ended up leading to a touchdown. Wow, that seems like insider information.
Yeah.
Integrity of the game, Section 15. It really makes you wonder. And then you have the case Stephen Ross, the owner of the Dolphins, is being investigated for bribing his head coach at the time, Brian Flores, of throwing games, $100,000 a game in 2019. That doesn't seem right. Adam Schefter and Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriots, are investors in a sports betting app. Wow, that's even more Venn diagram.
Yeah. And, you know, another one of the most obvious things is a lot of these athletes are friends with each other. LeBron James hangs out with, you know, Dak Prescott's and Ezekiel Elliott's, and, you know, members of the Sixers hang out with members of the Eagles. So there's a lot of cross, like, you know, hey man, I'm not playing this week, you know, don't tell anybody yet, but it's not official. All these guys hang out with each other. All these guys go on vacations with each other. So it's very hard to kind of keep track of who's who, where's information coming from. So, you know, there is, like you said, a Venn diagram of things and where, you know, how everything connects. Just one of those webs where it's just spiraling out of control.
Yeah, but ultimately, I guess for Calvin Ridley, it's yet another example of being caught between hard rock and a place.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That is a terrible pun, but we'll allow it. So moving forward, you know, what other things do we got kind of eyeballing for March? We got March Madness. We got this, you know, Ridley stuff that's probably not going away. What's one more thing that we're kind of eyeing that you can kind of see coming around?
Yeah, for me, I'm trying to gather some string on the financial and emotional pain that no spring training is inflicting on the state of Florida, sort of bouncing around the minor league ballparks that would have been strict spring training venues, day after day games getting canceled. And unless there's a breakthrough on the day of taping, there's going to be a second week of the regular season cut. So that's very sad for any of us who enjoy watching the baseball players chase the baseball.
Yeah, for us season ticket holders here in White Sox Stadium, it's sad news if nothing comes around. But what are you going to do? We'll keep monitoring that issue. We do have a little bit of news. Well, not really news. Winning Time is finally out. First episode is up. If you haven't seen that interview of ours, put a link down in the description. It's a very good video. We highly recommend watching that if you're a fan of Lakers and Adrian Brody and John C. Riley. Is there any new updates on that? Like, you know, is there anyone else you're talking to or anything like that?
Yeah, we have some more bonus material for you. I got an interview with Jim Hecht. He's a co-creator of the show. He helped write episode 1. He actually made the link from Jeff Pearlman's book to script, which, you know, brought it to HBO Max. In 2014, he was sort of down and out in his career. He admits he was having some substance abuse problems. He was trying to get back on his feet and find the next project, something to love and something to work on. And he made contact with Pearlman, and he decided they had a meeting. It coincidentally occurred on Easter just because he was free. Pearlman didn't really know what to think about it. There's actually a really great interview with Pearlman on Rich Eisen show podcast. You go check that out after you finish this one.
Yeah.
But they arranged the meeting at Pearlman's house. He showed up with a tomato, a non-alcoholic wine drink, and a big piece of chocolate as an icebreaker gift. Apparently it went well because it ended up on the screen. But we have an interview now, talk to Hecht about creating the show, some of the interesting thematic elements they put in the show. And specifically, I have a story up at Play USA Now. Click down below. Hopefully you'll like it, about the freedom that this show had in fictionalizing and going inside the brains of the characters rather than just sticking to the strict 30 for 30 documentary kind of style that's really dominated sports storytelling the last 15, 20 years or so.
Yeah. The show's great. I checked out the first episode. Won't give you any spoilers, but it's up on HBO Max right now. Go check it out. check out that pod. We'll link to that, as Brant said. I figure, this is a short one. We'll keep it short. I mean, I don't have anything else to kind of talk about. What about you?
No, I like to listen to my interview with Jim Hecht again. He was pretty cool.
Well, you guys know the drill. Like, follow, subscribe. If you have any questions for us, shoot up for your Twitter, anything like that. Go like the stuff. Go check out the rest of the episodes in the pod. And, get ready to fill out those brackets.
One of the things that really interests me about Winning Time is sports content in the last several years has seemed to sort of center around the 30 for 30, where it's documentary, archival footage, athletes talking about what they did and what they remember and so on. But with this one, obviously fictionalized and it's portrayed as that, seem like you can not take liberties necessarily, but really expand on what you think they thought and broaden it. How do you think the audience is going to receive that? And why was that the way you wanted to go with this?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, how the audiences are going to receive it. I can only speak to the way that I receive it, which is like, that's what I want to see.
Yeah.
As like when I was a kid, I don't know if you remember the show, but there was a show on called The White Shadow that, was, to me, would be more interesting than watching the documentary version of that. Or, at the time that I read the book, Jeff Pearlman's book, 2014, I was watching Friday Night Lights, and so to me, a documentary, I love documentaries. I love Ezra Edelman's documentary on this team. I love, on the rivalry that he did for HBO. I love The Last Dance. But to me, like, there's always a surface level of thinking and intellectual analysis that is there, and abstraction. Like there's a screen between you and the documentary, and it stimulates me the way that I think, but the way that I want to tell stories is like, I want to get in the hearts and souls, the feelings of the things, of the people, the relationships. And I just don't feel like you can, at least with this subject, it didn't seem to me like it lent itself to a documentary. I want to hang out with Magic. I want to know what Magic's like when the cameras weren't on, right? I want to know what they talked about. I want to know what Magic with Kareem, it's hard to get stuff out of Kareem in a documentary. Like, I want to know what Kareem is like away from the court and the cameras and the public eye, and Pat Riley and all those guys. And so I don't know how people are going to take it, but that was just the thing that meant more to me, that I thought would have more, that would be more meaningful to the audiences. And that's not to crap on people that want to do documentaries. It's just the lens that I viewed it through.
Yeah. I guess Norm Nixon through Devon, is that the only player input, if even that can count as input in this, other than Perlman's book and the actors like Quincy saying he read Magic's autobiography about business and so forth?
Right. Well, yeah, I think directly that's about it. But indirectly, like, there's thousands of interviews and hours of film and we dug up old books that had since gone out of print, and you really get a sense of a person through that material, I think, too. And Jeff also, in addition to his book, had files and files of interviews that he had done that sort of spoke to that stuff. But yeah, I mean, the only person that we directly spoke to was Norm, and I don't know if they told you that story, but like his two notes were like, I never got a pedicure, I never wore a fur coat.
Yeah.
So thank you. But yeah, that's all. That was the only sort of direct contact that we had.
I'm interested. I would imagine you are too. How fans who watched these teams are going to take you going inside their head. And the one that is really interesting to me is Jerry West, because Jason did a phenomenal job at that. And as I was telling, I guess I was framing a question to him. People think of Jerry West as the logo, or a guy in grainy bad footage playing for the Lakers, or the gentlemanly guy with the plum jacket and the hair. And he goes some places in this role that are not anything that Jerry West would, let take the public to,
Yeah, I don't know if you ever read Jerry West's book, West by West, but he goes deep in that book and also in a lot of interviews. He did it with McKay and the podcast and stuff like that. And he's been very open ever since then to talk about the battles that he had with depression and his life and the death of his brother and the way that he grew up and his abusive alcoholic father and stuff like that. And so I think everybody's going to have their own characters that they really identify. But for me, just given like I had my own personal struggles with depression and anxiety and stuff like that. And when Jerry West talks about the way that he feels, it, speaks to the way that I sometimes feel. And so you look at a guy who's known for being a logo, a one-dimensional image, and beyond that is all this complexity that you can really identify with. And when he talks about, because I've also dealt with addiction issues and stuff like that, and it's like, when he talks about basketball, I hear an addict. Do you know what I mean? Talking about like he gets out, he gets withdrawal, he goes miserable, he has to get back in, he gets one hit, he needs more, like he needs the total control. It's just like, I get that as a person. Like I know exactly what he's talking about. So, for me, yeah. And Jason, you watched it, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's the job that he does in bringing Jerry West to life is just amazing. Like, what an actor, and to watch his process and stuff is amazing.
Yeah, he definitely grabs you from the beginning, and in the same vein of grabbing you, the first scene is just riveting, but and also the use of the narrator role. I mean, back to the 30 for 30 question, you just pull him right in. That gets the viewer right into the thought process. But was that your thought process, and having the characters do that? It's just fascinating how that plays out in the show.
Yeah, when I look at back then, I was, watching stuff that was a little bit more unstructured than normal, and people were starting to play with that. The OJ series was out, not just the documentary, and there was this movie that I really like called 24-Hour Party People, which uses a lot of direct address and breaks a lot of traditional rules about how to tell story. And then that was 14, so Big Short doesn't come out until 2015. And then when I saw that, I was like, that's the perfect embodiment of the storytelling that I see, because there, aside from the emotional states and times when we want to draw out and make bigger analogies about things, there's also just stuff about basketball that's hard to explain, and I think you can cut through a lot of nonsense if your character can just turn to camera and explain free agency, or, explain why the Showtime offense is different from anything that came before. And then, Max Bornstein came in, our showrunner, took it to a next level. He had a very, the same sort of, vision for how the story should be told. And it has just been, incredible at translating all that stuff onto screen.
The episode one obviously starts with, very early November 1991. What was behind the decision to, go with that? Obviously the end point, sort of the end point of that, and begin with it.
Yeah, that was all Max. And so I don't know, I remember talking about it when we were breaking the story, but I think it was like, you're going to know this. Even for somebody that knows nothing about basketball, you're going to know this part of it. So let's just get into it and get it out of the way. And then I think, well, you know what? I don't want to speak for it. I'd rather that people watch it and draw their own conclusion. I think about it. Why, I don't want to tell people what to think about why that's the place that it starts.
Sure.
But it's the place that it starts.
Yeah, exactly. Will there be a second season?
God, I hope so. I mean, there's a lot of places we can go. We're writing right now. We haven't, been picked up, at least, there's no green light, and but we're working. We're crafting a second season right now, and hopefully the genius, brilliant, very kind, well-paying, generous people at HBO see it in their infinite wisdom to continue telling the story, because I think there's a lot more story to tell. And how far could it go? It could still be getting written. Yeah,
absolutely. How fun was it to interject all the little 80s nuggets? I know as someone who lived through that was fun to see. I haven't even fact checked it. I'll fact check it through you. Was Kobe really, as a baby, at Magic's first game? Is that true?
I'm not sure. I would have to go fact check it. But It is true that the guy guarding the inbounds pass was Jelly Bean Bryant.
Okay.
And it is true that Kobe was just born in the time period that we said that he was born. I don't remember whether he was physically there or not. I would have to go back and look. And honestly, sometimes things that we made up have now become like truth in my mind. So I just see them as being true. And other times, like I look back at things that I thought we made up and I'm like, oh my God, that was really true.
Yeah.
More often it's that than anything else. Like I'm still shocked at the crazy stuff that happened. to this team and in the story. That's true.
Yeah, there was so much.
I grew up, like I said, I grew up as a huge Laker fan. I didn't know the stuff in Jeff Pearlman's book. I didn't know where Pat Riley started out. I didn't know about Jack McKinney. Like, I didn't know about the brush with Tarkanian and all that stuff without giving away too much of it. Like I think even the people that were around in the era like us are not necessarily going to know some of the craziest, most amazing stuff about the series.
Yeah, incredible. Well, the little chat wrap it up just popped up in front of me. I don't know if you saw that too.
Oh, no, I don't see. I just see you. You're like right in my eye line.
Oh, okay. Well, I got it. And so I really appreciate your time. It was really great speaking with you. Thanks for this. And
thank you. I appreciate yours too.
Yep. Thank you. Have a good day.